Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. It's a little mind-blowing to believe that we did our first virtual conference about a year ago now, and we're still interacting just like this. But I have to say, I enjoy all of the relationships that I've made virtually over the past year, just like the five of you. So we have connected so much over the past year. We've had so many great conversations. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to network just with peers nationwide. There's so much value in it, so much we can learn from one another. And I'm really looking forward to our upcoming conference, which begins on Monday. So 3 straight days, 100% free, 50 plus sessions you can learn from. So be sure to tune in. It'll be available after the fact. And a huge thanks once again to Precision Fermentation, River Drive Cooperage, and JoAnne and everybody who's great over at White Labs. Their support makes it possible for us to have these great events. But I'm really excited to have just a conversation with the five of you. A little human interaction always makes my day better. So Joel, you're to the right of me. If you could just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do in the industry.
Cool. My name is Joel. I'm a Scorpio. I like long walks on the beach and fluffy white pillows.
Wait, Joel, wait up. You've used that introduction before. You need something new.
Why would I lie? I'm still a Scorpio. I just recently purchased a new pillow. It is a gel cooling pillow, and I love it. So it's not as fluffy as the majority of the pillows that I have purchased and acquired and used, but I'm still a big fan of it. I am the partnerships director at Hope for the Day, a nonprofit out of Chicago, Illinois. We focus on mental health education as a form of proactive suicide prevention. And what I do in the industry besides consume and continue my support of my community is I'm working on an international brewing project right now called The Things We Don't Say, IPA, Craft Beer for Mental Health, trying to bring the conversation about our individual mental health into the craft beer community, from the consumer up to the brewer and back in between. We're trying to make sure that people are taking time for themselves, being able to kind of reflect on not only their alcohol consumption, but their relationship with alcohol, but then also being okay to kind of take steps forward when it comes to working on racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, all these problems that we have in the industry that we can't seem to get through to. Well, I think the conversation actually starts with mental health and our relationship with our own brains. So I'm hoping to right now we have 167 breweries in 7 different countries around the planet, all talking about mental health starting around May. We've got a few breweries in Minnesota and Wisconsin that have already dropped their versions, but we're looking forward to conducting education throughout the industry and continuing the conversation on mental health in craft beer.
And Joel, are breweries still able to sign up?
Absolutely. We got some breweries that aren't even open until July, so they're signing up now. We've got some breweries that want to wait until September, which is Suicide Prevention Month. I know that there's a brewery in New Zealand that wants to actually release their beer on September 10th, which is World Suicide Prevention Day. So yeah, this conversation isn't going anywhere. Mental health isn't just relegated to 1 month out of the year. So if you want more information, hit up thingswedon'tsay.beer or hit me up at joel@hftd.org.
And Joel's positivity is infectious. Reach out to Joel. He'll probably email you back in about 10 seconds. And the only person who will email you back quicker than Joel is quite possibly JoAnne, who might be one of the busiest people I know in the craft beer space. JoAnne, tell everybody a little about what you do.
Well, I'm going to be honest. My introduction can't even touch yours, Joel. Like, I'm kind of at a loss now. But I am the head of business development for White Labs, and we are excited to support next week's conference. I think what you've been doing, Andrew, over the last year to make sure that we are continuing to connect as an industry has been phenomenal. And so we're excited to participate next week and talk a little bit about being a supplier, but also being a brewer over the last year and what that's meant to White Labs. But, you know, Julia Hurst told me recently I'm not allowed to say that I'm old anymore. So I'll just say I'm a veteran of the industry. I've been around since the early 90s, watched this industry go through so many different changes and probably some of the most significant ones over the past year. And I'm excited just to chat with everybody today and see where we are. The challenges that we face, I think, are going to be out there for at least the next 18, if not 24 or 36 months, trying to rebuild what this industry was, pre-COVID. So I'm looking forward to today.
No, I appreciate your support, JoAnne, and glad to have you here. And honestly, Joel and JoAnne, conversations like this are almost like mental health breaks in my world. You know, I'm not actually focusing on a specific task. I'm getting to interact with people and have a great conversation. So it's going to be a fun time. And Julie, you and I talk nearly every week, but we haven't spoken until now today. But for the rest of the world who doesn't know you, tell them a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'll reiterate what JoAnne said. I'm a veteran in this industry that has been around since the early mid 2000s, I guess, in multiple roles, service industry, supplier side sales, management, marketing, et cetera, distribution management, things like that. So that's kind of the lane that I live in right now. I don't like to use the word consultant, but that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell. I work with growing craft beverage alcohol brands to help them come up with like strategic sales plans, train their sales reps. I help them with distributor management because we all know that there's not a guidebook out there for that. And I also dabble in a lot of digital marketing education. So I do group coaching. I do one-on-one stuff. I have digital courses if you don't want to talk to me. It's hands off. You can use your phone. And I'm excited. This is my third conference under my belt with you, and people have seen me in CBP. I'm the one that like chimes in on what CRM do I use. I go through my spiel for all of that every time, but that's me. I'm happy to be here. I'm in Colorado, like Rachel and JoAnne. I know Jason very well, and Joel's one of my favorite people on this planet. So I'm happy to be here in this chat.
And Julie, you've done a fantastic job of networking virtually in CBP. So I think you've made the most of the community by getting your name out there as a business, but providing general value to everyone who has a question about anything. You chime in so often, and I love it.
Thank you. If I can help people, that's my bag. I didn't discover teaching until late in life, but I probably should have been doing it a lot earlier. But I like Marie Kondo'd my career. Like it just brings me joy to teach people things. So that's where I'm at right now.
No, keep up the good work. And Rachel, nice to see you 2 days in a row. I always enjoy my interaction with Arryved, so it's nice to have you here today. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is my first time on participating in a CBP event, and I'm excited to do the panel today and interact with you all next week as well, and in our talks and things like that. But I am a senior growth specialist over at Arryved. We are a point of service company for craft beverage spaces and food as well. So my background is I'm also a veteran of the food and beverage industry. I was a chef for about 12, 13 years, director of sales and COO for a regional brewery based out of Denver as well, and then have moved now into the tech space. So also kind of feel like I'm a bit of a consultant. I get to talk to business owners, people in planning, and talk about their service models, what's going to help them grow, and how we bridge a gap between sales and production, and how technology can help through that. So I'm excited to continue that conversation in this space and meet all of you all virtually. I've seen your names all around the CVP threads and things like that. So I'm excited to be a part of it.
And for everyone who's listening later,
a lot, and I'm a Virgo, so those are one of my favorites as well, Joel.
And also for everyone listening after the fact, maybe on Spotify, Rachel is wearing an awesome hat. So big credit to you for being able to pull that off. I know I told you yesterday I can't pull off hats, but you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you very much. Excited for it.
And Jason, another person I've really enjoyed connecting with during the pandemic. You're in the Georgia area. Tell everybody about what you do in the industry.
Yeah, so I help facilitate growth in the craft beverage industry. I do the boring stuff that no one wants to talk about. I help with the money part of things. So I provide funding for expansion. That seems to be a pretty hot topic right now. There's a lot of breweries that are out there fishing for maybe the second location or bigger equipment because they found they actually do want to distribute a little bit more through COVID to supplement their tap room. We also do startups. So that's a little bit more selective coming out of COVID. We're not just throwing money at startups, but we are, for the right ones, we are helping them get up and running and getting new breweries into the industry also. So we just help. We really understand that. We provide a lot of things that a lot of other banks don't. And part of that, and probably the main part of that, is just the know-how. We've done it before. And so when I look at projections or when my underwriter is talking with a deal, we can really understand things at a much greater level. And when you understand the industry, you can provide a lot better consulting and understanding of what a brewery would need to be successful either in the expansion or a startup phase.
Now, Jason, let's dive a little bit more into that, the expansion. We are in the middle of a worldwide pandemic right now, and you're talking about breweries expanding. What is profile of the breweries you're working with that are looking to grow and looking to expand? What are those interactions like?
So a lot of them, they've hit max capacity. So, a lot of times a brewery will start out in one or two places. They'll start out with a lot of capacity in the early going, and they expect that they're going to grow into it. Or others will start with a lot more modest initial growth, right? So their cooperage is smaller, their brew house is smaller, and they're going to push the limits till they get there. And so I'm working on right now 2 of them where we talked about, and they said, look, with our design, with our equipment, with our fermentation capability, we literally can't get one more barrel of beer through on an annualized basis. And for us, that's music to our ears, because that says that you've got market acceptance, you've got demand, you've got really kind of smart acquisition. And usually the financials don't always say, man, you were printing money because of that. But a lot of it says, if we give you more capability, you'll be able to do a lot with that. So you'll be able to grow the top line. You'll be able to increase your margins. You may start, and put a silo outside. You may do some of those things that start, taking care of your cost of goods. You'll get a lot of synergies. Or the other side of that is, they went out and they raised a bunch of capital because people said, we love you and we want to do some things. And they said, well, we've got demand and we need to go put a second tasting room out, or we've been really small and we need to really focus on production and distribution. And we've had a taste of canning, but that was with a mobile canner, and it was kind of pieced together. And now we like this, and so we need a full canning line, and we need some dedicated tanks to be able to get production out in the market. So it really is the production and the growth is, I think, partly credited to COVID. Some of these guys probably would have just stayed in their little small thing, but COVID said, oh my gosh, we're not going to come to you in your tap room anymore. You've got to get your beer out in the market. And they have good beer. And so now all of a sudden they say, hey, we've got to grow.
So that's interesting. I know I feel guilty sometimes to say that COVID's been a good thing in my life, but it's given me a lot of opportunity, whether it's growing CVP or just spending more time with my little one, just from being at home more. For the rest of you hanging out today, how has COVID been for you? Has it been a good year? Has it been a bad year? What are some general feedbacks on your experiences, just working with the breweries and clients that you have?
For us, obviously, when shutdowns happen, people aren't making beer. If they're not making beer, they don't need yeast, right? So, there was a direct impact on yeast sales. Coming out of it, again, we're still slowly coming out of it. We're seeing some of the sales rebound. But to Jason's point, what's interesting is that, a lot of what we're getting as far as new customers or if you want to say increased sales are through these second locations, even some new people, which I actually want to ask Jason about later, about when he said they were selective on who they're funding. I'd really be curious, what factors, because there are a lot of people out there looking to open. They are, right? So I think, last year for us, it was, making sure that we were level loading our production to what the demand was, but that changed constantly. State was open, then a state was closed. And so obviously we didn't have a stellar year, meaning, it was down from 2019, but we are seeing pretty good growth right now in the first quarter. So it's been pretty good. On our hospitality side, again, we're one of the suppliers that actually have a hospitality. We have White Labs Brewing Company. To Jason's point, we started canning, bringing our beer out because people couldn't come to our tasting room. So we had some really bright, shining spots. And it's really helped us focus on what we want to be as a brewing company and how that relates to our yeast business and to our customers. So it's been phenomenal for that aspect of really kind of rebranding, rethinking, how do we use this avenue that we have within our business to support the yeast side? But then at the same time, right now, we're struggling because, as a lot of people are, there's not staff. A lot of people left the hospitality industry over the last year. So, so I guess you could say for us, peaks and valleys.
No, thanks for sharing all that. How about everybody else? What have your experiences been like? Rachel, for example, I know Arryved interacts with so many breweries. How has it been for you over the past year?
Yeah, I mean, March last year, it was like, oh man, what is happening out in the world? We were fielding a lot of panic from business owners, internal panic. The world was just shifting in such a new space. And we as a company really, the word of 2020, made a great pivot and release some really important and pivotal things for our customer base to be able to get their products out the door, even when the doors weren't open, right? So we couldn't have folks coming in. We released an online store for our existing customers so that folks could, still get the products in their hands, have that revenue stream come back in our territories and things like that. So I cover Colorado and the Southeast. And so who I talked to in that last year, it was okay, so we're given this deck. How do we create ways to get our products continuously into our customer base's hands? We need to save money. We need to pick some technology that grows with us in this new world, to both Jason and JoAnne's point, as people start picking up extra tasting rooms and things like that. And how do they make informed business decisions from the data of what's going out into folks' hands? And so I also talked to a lot of breweries and planning. So just because there was a pandemic doesn't mean plans stop, right? Those business plans are already rolling, and now it's okay, maybe construction was delayed, but we have time to focus on some other systematic pieces that need to be put in place, and think about our service model and think about that. So, at the first, it was a lot of panic, as we all experienced, into, okay, now how do we make informed decisions based off the realities we've been given? And how do we make the best of what's been handed to us and continue to go forward and prosper?
No, it's great insight there. And if you're playing along at home, everybody, Rachel said pivot once. So that means you need to take your first drink. And Julie, I like to turn the table to you. We'll try to avoid those pandemic buzzwords, but you're super passionate about the business side of the industry. I know you like to work with businesses one-on-one to help them find ways that they can, be more successful. What has your experience been like over the past year? Do you see more businesses being willing to invest in the business side of their operation, or as a, consultant with little air quotes up there, how has your experience been over the past 12 months?
Yeah, people want to talk to me now, which is awesome. I teach really not sexy stuff. Like JoAnne gets to talk about yeast and like microbes and things like that. And what brewer doesn't want to talk about that? I'm like, what's your ROI? And they're like, we don't want it. They're totally out. So, yeah, I had, I jest, but this is what I love talking about. Right. And it is the reason that I started my business, because if you were to get on the Google machine and type in like starting a brewery business, you're going to get stuff about like how to brew things and, maybe like hospitality stuff and, legal resources and stuff like that. And then wait a second, I have a business and I have to sell things. So holy smokes, how do I sell stuff? And then it's like, wait, I have to use the Facebook. How do I do this? Right? Like, how do you even do that? So it was, my business is still very young, right? So, March of last year comes and my schedule cleared like a toot in an elevator, like just everybody like, whoop, it's out, and people are barely staying afloat, right? Why would you want a consultant if you can barely keep your lights on, right? So I had a big wake up call. And I was like, oh, screw this. I'm just throwing the rule book out the window. I have a marketing background. I know the things that I'm supposed to do for my business, like, and I was like, well, all the rest of the rules are thrown out the damn window. I might as well just throw the rule book out the window and I'm just going to start teaching people stuff because I can, and if it can help people, awesome. So I threw myself into that and it felt really good. And I shifted, not the P word, my business model to go from like 100% just like education, almost like a college course, like kind of textbook, traditional education stuff, to literally like, okay, come to me with all your problems and let's just hash out like how to fix them. Because I've been doing this for a long time. Let's just get it done. Right. So, yeah, it changed my business model, but for the better, right? And I also think it was a really great wake-up call to our industry, because we had this like heyday run, where it's like, I'm craft, I'm local, yeah, squirrel syndrome, like give me all the things, right? And so it's kind of an easy sell for the past like 5, 6, 7 years. And now we're getting down to like hardcore. Do you know what you're doing in the market? Do you know how to work with your buyers? Like, do you know how to talk about your brand? Do you even have consistent branding? Like, did your cousin make your logo? Like, is it your, beer tender that's running your social media? Like, it's been a growing period for everybody, which I think is a huge silver lining for everyone in this industry. Like, let's have multiple income streams. Let's have cash reserves. Let's, do innovation the smart way, right? And let's make sure that we're connecting with people with our incredible like backstory, like our origin stories and like our creative process and like all the things that you're supposed to be doing when you do like authentic sales and marketing. You know what I mean? Like back to basics. Like let's get back to being personal with people, not predatory, not trendy, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my soapbox moment there.
And Julie, while I have you, I want to dive into your social media soapbox for a second there. The other day, I was lucky enough to talk in one of our fellow crappy professionals. He's also a college professor, Greg Heller-Labelle. He also owns the Colony Meadery. He invited me to join him, great guy, in his college course to talk to his students about building a community and about creating secret hoppers. So I was talking to him and his students, and he asked his class, how many of you are active on Facebook? This is a class of college-age students. For the 5 of you, guess how many of these college-age students out of 20 raised their hand on that one?
I was like 10%, maybe 2.
Yeah, about 10% of these college-age students told me that they were spending time on Facebook. And, I'm not a whole lot older than these college students. I'm not the oldest person or the youngest person in the room, but that actually shocked me. So, Julie, as we talk about finding the consumers who you want to sell your product to, what are your thoughts on educating this demographic, the college-age demographic of people who are just starting to legally drink? What are your thoughts on the platforms we should be reaching them with?
Oh man, you're going to go here, aren't you? You're going to open up this can of worms. Okay, let's go here. All right. First of all, plug. I just wrote an article about this for Kodo for their new beer branding guide. I'm sorry, Isaac. I probably just, spoiler alert. Sorry if you didn't know, because it hasn't come out yet. Woo. Okay, but pick up the Kodo branding design guide, because I wrote an article about how to market craft beer to Gen Z. So that's your first step whenever that comes out. You're gonna have to you're gonna mention the TikTok. All the things, right? No, what I like to tell people is that you have to think about your audience all the time. Where is your audience, right? Like maybe those people in that class are not right for certain pockets of their craft beer. Like sales and marketing is not about you. It's your branding, but it's about your audience, right? So, if I'm trying to market to my mom, I'm probably going to hang out on Facebook all the time. If I'm trying to, grab, like Gen X and millennials, I'm probably going to go to Instagram, right? If I want Gen Z, I'm probably going to lean heavy towards like Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, and then I'm going to dip into TikTok a little bit, maybe Snapchat. I don't know, all that kind of stuff. But you have to weigh the pros and cons too. You have to think about your capacity as a company. Like, is it hard for you to do? Like, first of all, are you doing the other stuff really well? Don't chase a million rabbits, but just do like 1 or 2 things really well and get good at like 1 or 2 channels. And then you can kind of open up to other places. But Dave Infante wrote a really great article for VinePair on TikTok marketing. For alcohol brands, if anybody wants to read that. It was very, very well done. The problem is the age group with that is that there's no parameters with TikTok right now. So you're taking a chance of getting in trouble for marketing to people that are underage because there's not a lot of rules. But if you want to go that way, play with Instagram Reels. If your Instagram business account is age gated and it's properly done, Instagram Reels is basically TikTok for grownups. So, you can go that direction. But overall, social media is vital. If you're not doing it for your brand at this point, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because you're
Your last question, Julie, do you have a TikTok?
Yes, I do.
So everybody, if you want to subscribe to Julie's TikTok, we can do that at.
Not personal. I have a business account and there's not much on there because, what I watch on TikTok is a horribly not exciting, like canning lines and, people brewing things, stuff like that.
So let's transition from how we're going to reach the consumer on social media. I love to hear how all of you have been, staying in touch with your breweries, your potential customers, anyone you're trying to interact with. What have been your best strategies to essentially stay top of mind over the past year?
YouTube webcasts. We've actually increased our YouTube channel, and we've put together some fun videos on the homebrew side, and then we take our Wednesday webcasts and put them up there. So YouTube, we've integrated really more, better email marketing that's actually integrated with our CRM, which is kind of nice. Again, this year, like I said, peaks and valleys. One of the peaks was that we actually we use NetSuite. We actually are using NetSuite in a really productive manner, which we hadn't been doing before. But really, to Julie's point, right? It's like everything was virtual. So you just found those things that worked. So, our Instagram was a little more interesting. We did YouTube. We've looked at Instagram Reels. We started using influencers. So we've done some co-op advertising with influencers, which has worked really well. So again, just kind of thinking about those things that we hadn't previously done and trying them. And then to Julie's point, we tried a lot of different things and now we know what's working and we're going to stick with those. So it could, because to Julie's point, going down the social media path is you can't just have somebody doing it part-time, and you have to have somebody who understands and knows what to do with it, because it is a lot of time and it could be a lot of wasted time if it's not effective.
I can 100% agree to that. And JoAnne, does White Labs have a TikTok?
We don't have a TikTok. We talked about it though.
I'll touch with you next week.
Maybe because I'm a veteran, I kind of went, and to Julie's point, I'm like, this is really hard. But for our younger set, we actually, so if everybody doesn't know, April 28th is Superhero Day, and White Labs does have our own superhero. So we will be launching our first Yeastman kind of coloring book / interactive to teach kids about science and microbiology. So maybe that's the time that we could go to TikTok and start using our Yeastman to teach kids a little bit more about science in a fun way.
That's awesome. So if we're looking to get more information about Yeastman, is there a website that we can find that coloring book when the time comes?
It'll be available on our brewing company website. But you can just, if anybody wants them, email them. We're really going to make them available like in San Diego and Asheville at our sites. But we'll probably start sending them out in packages of yeast too, just for fun. But it's again, thinking outside the box is what COVID brought to us. And a year ago, we probably never would have really pushed this. And now it's like, I have a designer who, if you've seen over the years, has really brought Yeastman to the forefront through our social media channels. And we realize this is an fantastic opportunity for White Labs to really bring forth kind of in a STEM program to students, the importance of science and microbiology, and really kind of drive students into those majors for the future. So.
No, I absolutely love it. Coloring book at a brewery sounds like a great time. And you're completely skipping the TikTok audience and you're going even younger when they first put crayons in their hands and teaching them about the value subconsciously about what we do.
Yeah, we're even talking about doing some in the future, just specific science courses. We do some in Asheville. We've done at the junior high school level, and then we work with AB Tech, so community college. Again, talking about science, bringing them in, seeing the lab, understanding what the opportunities are in the brewing industry, well beyond just brewing, right? And so, in the future, I hope to be able to add more courses like that in our education and really start doing more outreach at the junior high and high school level.
I absolutely love that. Great work there. Now, for Joel, Jason, and Rachel, how have you been able to kind of stay in touch with all your breweries, everyone you interact with over the past year, and provide value?
I think I'm utilizing every form of communication. I'm trying to do a better job of establishing boundaries. I recently turned on my, the bedtime thing on your phone, the do not disturb thing, except for like, your wife and kids. I started setting that earlier and earlier and earlier. This time last year, I was about 10 p.m. I am now currently at 6:45 p.m. Because I'm having a very difficult time just simply like sitting alone with my thoughts because I'm accessible. And I don't think anybody on here knows besides Andrew, but I'm 26 days away from no longer being an elected official. And that takes a lot of bandwidth because every week I have 2 to 3 meetings and I'm not just reading like 20, 30 pages. I'm getting packets of like 300 to 700 pages on average. So in addition to trying to establish boundaries for how available I am for other people, I'm trying to realize that I really have a lot of stuff going on, and I'm stopping apologizing for not being available. Yesterday, I had a day where I was at a brewery in St. Charles, Illinois, Riverlands Brewing. They brewed their batch of Things We Don't Say IPA, and I had my phone in my pocket on mute. And when I pulled my phone out, I had 72 text message notifications, and they weren't group messages. And I had a mini panic attack. I'm like, oh, all these people expect these things of me. And I remembered that I should reframe these types of things as saying, I'll get back to them when I get back to them. If it's not my wife or my kids or my dad or my mom, I'm really not going to put it at the top of the priority, because if somebody needed something immediately, I'm probably not the only person who would be on their contact list. So I'm trying to remember that I am incredibly accessible, but I'm also putting up some boundaries around those things so I can stop feeling like everybody else is in charge of me, but they're not paying me. So understanding that being accessible and utilizing certain forms of social media and communication is awesome. But if you're not turning it off, you will eventually explode. So I'm trying to kind of lead by example. And my kids, I didn't realize this. I got 3 kids, 11, 11, and 13. Yes, I drink. But they are actually teaching me a lot about boundaries, because sometimes I will call my kid's phone when he's upstairs, like playing a video game, and I notice that it rings. But his phone doesn't ring after a certain time. He's like, yeah, well, you and mom, it always rings. Like, see, I can learn a lot from an 11 and a 13-year-old. So I'm trying to take solace in the fact that I don't need to be available all the time. Because like, when do you sleep? Like, I always get that comment thrown at me. I'm like, I actually don't sleep very well, but now I'm focusing on not being available during the hours that I should be sleeping, that I am not.
That's a challenge I think all of us can relate to. Being, business people in a pandemic, it's easy to stay connected all the time, respond to your email before you go to bed. I'm doing the same thing as usual. One thing that I've found successful is I simply cut off my Facebook notifications. So essentially, I won't get that little thing in the corner of the app saying you have a billion notifications you need to check. When I want to check it, I check it. But I found myself, once I decide to open up that app, then I have to knock them all out. So I'm still working to get better at that, but it's baby steps trying to disconnect. And does a lot for your mental well-being for sure.
Amen.
Now, Jason and Rachel, I'd love to hear from both of you.
Yeah, I could take some notes from Joel's boundaries there. I with working from home these days, it's like you can always, there's always something to respond to. There's always an email to send out. I also run a nonprofit in my free time, so it's having those kind of boundaries is key. So I'm going to take that away from today too. But as a company, we really ramped up for the social media. We really ramped up our Instagram stories and also YouTube videos. So about some new products and features that we've released to really kind of get that out there and blast that out. And then we also have been upping our blog game a lot and getting those out either via, press releases, partnerships. I think the biggest thing that we've done as Arryved, when the pandemic hit and everybody got scared and things shut down, what's some of the first funding that you cut as a business is generally, kind of sales and marketing. So we really had to get creative as a team. And, what we've done is really kind of lean on these partnerships. Craft Beer Professionals is a great example, the BA, the guilds. And so each of us are, Arryved as members of most of the guilds of the states that we're in. And so really leaning on those kind of relationships and providing information to guild bases and then having them, kind of come back through and then emailing and making sure that we're getting the information that we have to provide that is helpful for the businesses to be able to get their products out, right? So really those main relationships, but not TikTok. We're not on TikTok, but our Instagram story game is really upped as well in the last 13 months or so.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Rachel. And last but not least, Jason, how are you connecting with breweries right now, and how are you providing them value?
Yeah, so my social media strategy is a lot more boring than theirs. Partly, I just get envious when Julie will send out something. We'll be like, I sent something out for the panel and she sent something out. Mine was all plain text and hers was like this really cool logo. And I'm like, clearly I'm not the marketing person. I'm the money person. So, mine has been text messages. So a lot of times I'll maybe see something and I'll just text them, say, hey, thinking about the brewery, seeing what's going on. Hopefully you guys are doing well. And that gets kind of a really good response back. I also use my phone to dial people. So on the other end, people say hello and I talk to them. And I know that's crazy too. And then every once in a while, I'll drive by people and I'll wave at them and they'll wave back. And it's kind of been good. So, I will tell you, the one social media that no one mentioned is my go-to. It's LinkedIn. And here's my funny story. I invited Andrew to connect on LinkedIn and I had to call him to say, hey, accept my invite. I want to tag you on something. And I'm like, clearly Andrew's not a LinkedIn guy, and so I'm not on the cool social media. I'm on the, more, I guess, clearly white collar, stuffy social media of LinkedIn. And, but I will tell you, the funny thing is there are brewery owners there and there are brewery people there. They don't check it very often. So like 3 or 4 months will come back and I'll get an invite acceptance. But for me, it really has been kind of more the in the trenches, emailing, phone calling. I secretly started sneaking to go see the guys when there was no one else around. I'd say, hey, are you at the brewery? And they'd say, yeah. And I'm like, well, can I come by if I stand 100 feet away and wear a mask? And they said, sure. So for me, I have realized that, unless I have like a money gun and I'm shooting it out, I have no TikTok coolness or, Instagram coolness or anything like that. So for me, it is Facebook because there's kind of a little bit, I can keep a little bit professionalism there. And then really kind of the LinkedIn part of it is kind of my bread and butter. So, if I'm open to suggestions on being cooler and trying to figure that out. But right now I'm just going to be uncool and, try and call people and talk to them via text and that kind of stuff.
Julie, I think Jason gave himself his own advice. He said a money gun. You need to literally find a money gun, shoot tons of money at a brewery, and that's your little stick there. Some like low budget local commercial and, your television. That's what you need to do. But with regard to LinkedIn, I want to spend more time on LinkedIn, but unfortunately, I am so attached to Facebook out of necessity. I have little time to spend on the other platforms. Even Instagram, I don't have a presence on Instagram much at all either. I'm just so dedicated to Facebook, which is a blessing and a curse.
I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. I have to admit that.
Yes.
I am, but I get very overworked with cringy sales messages in my DM box on LinkedIn that I'm just like, no, please. That's for everybody. If you're doing LinkedIn marketing, please read somebody's profile to see exactly what they do before you reach out and you think we should really connect. Figure out what I do before you send me a direct message. That's actually a good rule of thumb for Instagram and Facebook across all messaging platforms.
Julie, I'm laughing because, we've started to really kind of revamp our LinkedIn profile on White Labs, especially because we've had some job openings, right, and everything else. And since I've started doing it, to your point, I have all these DMs, although Jason, I did accept yours. They're like, we can totally help you. I'm like, no, I don't need a search, a search firm. No, I don't. And I'm just like, who are you people? And
So I will tell you one of my best practices, and it takes some effort, but here's where it is, right? So first, thank you, JoAnne. I did send everyone that I wasn't already connected with a LinkedIn invite that said, hey, glad we're on the panel. Looking forward to connecting. But one of the things that I have realized, because I was afraid I was going to miss out on business, and I almost did, because what was happening is if they didn't send a message to me, a lot of times I'd be like, I don't think so. And I would hit, no, I don't want to connect with you. But what I've learned, and I think this is good advice for a brewery owner or whoever, is very quickly, if you go to manage all requests, you can actually message them without connecting with them. And I send them something that says, hey, thanks for the request. What part of my profile made you want to connect with me? And I give them a week. And if they don't respond, I hit delete. And if they do respond, a lot of times one person was like, well, it doesn't look like it, but I'm actually investing in this brewery and we need money. And I'm like, all right, cool. And others have said, oh, I want to sell you something. I'm like, thank you. I'm not the right person to be sold to. And I just say no to them, right? So for me, it keeps the noise down after you connect with them. And what I have found is that there's a lot of passive LinkedIn users. They're not posting that, they're doing things, but they'll come up to me in person and say, hey, I saw you post about this brewery, or I had a guy today, I've been kind of posting the tour of Florida that I did last week. And some people have been like, you're everywhere. And I'm like, so you're watching it, but no little like or clap or no little comment, but it still tells me that it's hitting the end user and I'm fine. If you don't interact with it, who cares? But you knew that I was out doing a brewery visit in Florida and there's potential for work there. And you may, be interested in doing something. So I would tell you, I think there's still a lot of interaction on LinkedIn. It doesn't look the same as like Facebook and, some of the other ones, but I think it's a good place to be, even in the craft industry.
It's pretty
insight there,
informative
Jason.
too. Yeah. Like, sorry, Andrew, not to I don't know how we got stuck on marketing for so long, but no, I would say to brewery folks, like if you want to learn more about suppliers and vendors, go to LinkedIn. Because there's actually a lot of information there. Like people publish their own articles, and like JoAnne, it could be something about like a certain strain of yeast or something like that. And so you don't, get all the noise from like Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. And it's pretty, it's I don't know.
We started sharing our blog. I shared a blog that we put on our website the other day, and like I said, and then we're using it again, going out. We have job openings. Again, to your point, just, putting us out there in that business world. So if someone is looking for that supplier, then at least that we have to your point, Jason, right? We have a presence, they can find us. And, again, even if you don't like it, follow it, the article's up there. So if somebody were to type in, yeast and fermentation, then we at least come up. Right. So, I get a lot on my LinkedIn. I get a lot, and it's just interesting because Rachel, you said you work within a nonprofit. I actually work with USA Climbing, and my nonprofit part of my life in COVID was just absolute sheer chaos this last year, still is. But it's interesting because a lot of the nonprofit stuff that I do through LinkedIn has actually connected me to brewers. So it is funny sometimes just how people find you and then they go, oh, wait, I didn't realize that you were doing this in climbing or this. And yeah. So,
isn't it great when your worlds collide?
It is. Well, they're going to collide again, too, for those that we're talking about climbing. We're doing the third rendition of Limey Unicorn, which is a climbing chalk beer at Wynkoop again in May. But that's the third time we've done it now. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really exciting. Now, the transition from being super connected on the internet, I want to talk a little bit more about being disconnected. Joel, you touched on this already. How have all of you been able to separate your work from your personal life? How have you put boundaries on, like Joel was talking about earlier? And what have you done merely to have that happy moment where you get to enjoy life and not think about the work you're doing 24/7?
I'm not good at it. I'm not going to lie. Joel, you're my hero. I do.
Takes practice.
It's brutal. I mean, it's hard when you're in, when you're home, and to your point, Rachel, right? You're sitting in front of your computer, you get a text message, you get a DM, or my WeChat goes off, or my WhatsApp, goes off at 8 o'clock at night. And it's like, well, I'm not really doing anything. So I haven't been good at it. And the only thing that I have been successful in this COVID is that, climbing is my thing. I turn off my phone and I go into the mountains and there's no cell reception. And that is really, truly the only time that I have been successful in disconnecting is when there's no cell service. So
I need that right now.
It actually takes practice. Yeah. So it's also something that if you go full on cold turkey, you'll find yourself just becoming angry. I don't know if you guys ever deal with this where like, if you're knee deep, and I'm using my eyeballs, but if you're knee deep in reading somebody's text message or email to you and a loud noise happens, you go, what the, and you snap up as if that did something to you. When that happens, don't beat yourself up, accept the fact that, okay, I reacted in a way that I'm not proud of, acknowledge it, put it in the pile, but practice. And like my 6:45 time did not happen overnight. That was like a general slow reduction because I noticed that like I was having like these moments at like 9:30 at night where I'm going, I should be exhausted because I am exhausted, but I can't sleep and I can't sit down. So what can I do besides, doom scrolling? So it was a gradual, all right, tonight I'm going to start at 8:45. tomorrow or next Monday, I'm going to start at 8:30. So don't go cold turkey because you'll find yourself saying, my phone needs me. Well, I'm going to say this bluntly, fuck your phone. So what I've been trying to do is finding things that don't allow me to touch my phone. And I'm going to give you 2 quick examples so that you can see it does not have to be overly ornate or freaking like you don't have to spend money on this. 2 things that I do for my own mental health, which people laugh at me when I say it. First thing, doing the dishes. You cannot touch your phone if you're washing the freaking dishes. And it sounds stupid, but I get to wash dishes, which is an act of service for my wife. I know that's her love language, but I get to do it and watch her enjoying sitting because she runs all day. She keeps my shit together. I adore that woman. So I'm doing something for her. No reason to check my phone. It's going to get wet. Number 2, also involving my wife, I rub her freaking feet because I'm not going to get lotion on a $1,000 cell phone. So by doing that, what I get to do is not only focus on her, again, active service, but I can't talk to you right now because I got this super attractive foot in my hand. And I'm, occasionally I'll make the fart noises. Like, she said the toot in the elevator. I will go, and then I make her laugh, which makes me happy. And then we get to watch our programs like an old married couple. So understanding that you can't go cold turkey because you're going to go right back to the phone like, oh, you needed me. Look at all these notifications for shit that doesn't matter. The things that actually matter to us are normally right in front of us. But if you have to set up boundaries and then feel bad about it, do it gradually, but then just make sure that the things that you're doing to distract yourself from that huge distraction are actually beneficial to the people around you. Another thing that you can do, I know that this is going to feel weird, but you can actually go into your your t-shirt drawer. Like I wear brewery t-shirts and Hope for the Day t-shirts almost exclusively, but I'll wear the same 3 t-shirts because you know what we do every damn day? Freaking laundry. So I go into my t-shirt drawer and I grab them and I do this and I put them back in and then like, whoa, did you get a new shirt? No, I wore something other than the top 4 shirts in my freaking t-shirt drawer. See, these are all very commonsensical things, but if somebody who's bald as hell and isn't afraid to drop the F-bomb in front of Andrew doesn't tell you, sometimes you fucking forget. It's okay to put the shit down. And now that I'm at 6:45, I can't wait till like August of this year. It's going to be like, I'm going to be at work getting no notifications because I'm gradually cutting myself from the rest of the world because all that really matters is what's in front of me, like you guys. Hi. So it's gradual, but be patient with yourself because you're gonna find yourself going back.
Joel, you're too kind. You've got it down to a science. We all envy you. And one piece of advice I believe you gave on the past mental health panel that we had last December was distance as well. Put your phone on the other side of the room. That way you can't touch it. I know for me, putting it on the charger halfway across my house, something as simple as that makes it a little bit harder for me to stay connected. So you have so many great tips, but I do have to ask you, what's that cute little tattoo on your right wrist?
This is actually my kid's initials. It looks like lava, but it's D, an L, and an M. It's an ambigram, so it's supposed to be the same up and down. My wife and I have matching tattoos on opposite arms, so when we hold hands, they touch. If you haven't guessed, I completely outkicked my coverage, and I am completely enamored with my wife. So I got that going on me, which is nice.
Does anybody else want to add in how you've disconnected through the past pandemic? I mean, it's hard to top Joel there.
Yeah.
Therapy, lots of. I mean, I have 2 kids under 10 that have been homeschooling while I'm building a company for a year. Joel and I had a wonderful conversation about this, and it's okay for me to say, like, I was not doing all right. I'm still not doing all right. I'm not. Do I love what I do? Yes, I love my company. I love what I do. Am I on TikTok? Yes, I'm on TikTok, but that doesn't mean I'm on TikTok at 9:00 at night. Like I have to shut things down, right? And it's different for everybody. So find what works for you. And I also read a tremendous book called Burnout by Dr. Emily Nagoski. And she talks about just the science behind the stress cycle. Like, know that you have a stress cycle. Know that you have to complete that stress cycle, because if you don't, it's like, can you imagine like what that looks like? Like, you're trying to complete the circle, right? But if you keep doing things where you don't, it's like, and then you get stuck in this back and forth, and then things compile, and that's when you burn out, right? That's when you're like, yeah. So, I would encourage people, like, talk to your staff. I would guarantee you that 90% of them are not okay, and allow them to say that. Like, Joel's great at informing people about that. Like, it's cool to say that you're not doing all right now. Like, it's fine. None of us are. None of us prepared for this. You know, it's crazy. And the things that I dealt with the past year, were those ever in my brain? Absolutely not. Like, nobody saw this coming. Maybe a few like super smart scientists like last year, you know what I mean? But like the general public, like we didn't, yeah, I mean, we didn't expect it. So, you know, think about self-care, give yourself grace for things, like allow yourself some space, you know, and mine is exercise, honestly, which I've never been like a super fitness person, but I discovered weightlifting, and it's like, you know, and then just to like get out of my head and get out of the work environment. Do I have to wake up at like dawn and go before everything else happens? Yeah, but it's worth it. And when I don't do it, I notice, you know, that there's a big difference just in my general demeanor. So find something that works for you, because everybody's different, you know, and self-care is not like bubble baths and spa days. Like, it could be exercise. It could be taking a walk around the block. It could be turning your phone off at 6 p.m., you know. Could be anything, but take care of yourself, because you're not going to be able to do anything else or take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself first.
Julie, if I've learned one thing from today, it's that self-care is Joel rubbing my feet. That is what.
Damn right. Damn right. I think Julie made a good point that I just want to double down on. You know, hope for the day. All of our slogans kind of, you know, it's okay not to be okay. Just something that I'm trying to, and yesterday we were at the brewery, I was saying, when somebody is telling you something that sucks, the big question that's always asked of me is, I never know what to say when somebody shares something with me that sucks. Well, ask yourself, does it suck if that was you? Then say, oh, that sucks. Validating somebody's experience does not mean that they're giving you a bag to carry. We've all got baggage, right? So if I tell you all the things that I'm worried about, I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm asking you to just listen, because as a person in my community, I should feel comfortable expressing myself. You know, I'm not going to get super deep with some people, but understanding that if somebody tells you something that sucks, you don't have to carry that. That's not your baggage. So understanding that is very, very important forever, but especially right now. Nobody's asking you to fix their freaking taxes right now, unless you're their accountant, and then that's your job and you enjoy that shit anyway. So understanding it's okay not to be okay, it goes both ways.
So Joel, it's interesting you say that, because we were talking before. No, I was going to say, we were talking before, right, about, you know, what you do for yourself. But, you know, last week I was in Nashville, and we have a temporary shutdown of our restaurant, and I had to talk to all of the employees that are employed. We had meetings with each of them, and the toll that COVID has taken on them. And to your point, it was hard, but it was so good. Just, you could see it like in their demeanor as you're talking, and they, you know, an hour into it, that we were listening to them. I was listening to what they had to say. This is what I went through this last year. This has become my family, because I used to have this big friend world, but basically if I was going to work in this restaurant, I couldn't go out and socialize. It was just about working in the restaurant. And letting them kind of process that and be able to say it. And it was interesting, because I guess one of the other employees mentioned something to me, and she's like, I cannot believe how diplomatic you are in these situations. And I said, because you just have, to your point, I had to listen. I didn't have to carry it. I had to listen, and I had to validate their feelings about what this past year has meant to them and what it's done to them.
Yeah.
And giving them this 2-week break was so important, because you could tell they were at that burnout stage. And Julie, on your book, Burnout's good, but another book that's phenomenal is it's Lawrence Gonzalez, and it's called Everyday Survival. And it's all about the mental aspects of how, you know, he's got a series of different books, but, you know, just how you deal with stress in your life. And it's an amazing book. Yeah.
Kind of to all those.
Rachel, I think you had something.
Yeah, I did. You know, for me, you know, stand-up paddleboarding is kind of my savior and grace, and that's how I also get out in Colorado. But as a company, I mean, you know, over the last year has been really difficult for so many reasons, COVID being one of them. And kind of, I started help facilitating an employee resource group. And so we are a Boulder-based company, right? And, you know, if you've seen anything in the news over the last few weeks, that we just had to hold some space there as a company. So we did that on Tuesday, and really kind of it came together and voiced all of our, you know, concerns, and we do that about once a month in that group. And it's really kind of, the way to disconnect for me in that scenario is to connect with our coworkers and employees, especially as the world is kind of shifting and things are just so different than any of us really have ever experienced before, or that even history in this kind of way has really prepared us for. And so we've kind of found in that employee resource group some really nice ways to interact with each other, create some space for those feelings and hardships, and then also hopefully at some point create some action to make the world a better place as well. So
no, great insight there, Rachel. And one thing I want to touch on before we kind of wind this down is, like many of you, I've had the opportunity to speak at so many different events across the country during the pandemic. And I absolutely love giving a presentation in my slippers where you have to show up literally 10 minutes before you go on a virtual stage. It's so easy. Then I go downstairs, have a beer and have dinner. It's absolutely fantastic. But looking ahead to 2022 when in-person becomes a thing, like all of you, we've talked at all these conferences, but will it be worth your time and effort to go to these conferences halfway across the country to speak for an hour or interact for a few days? How have you thought about planning ahead to the future of when in-person events become a thing again? Do you think you'll participate in as many, or how will you decide which ones you get involved with?
As long as I'm not losing money, I think I want to get the hell out of my freaking house. So part of me is like, well, can they cover the airfare of me, my wife, and my 3 kids in one hotel room with a cot? I don't know. But I need to be, for my own health, I'm a people person, and I'll admit it, I'm missing events. I'm missing live music. I'm missing being deaf for a freaking day after a show. I'm missing freaking baseball, even though I don't give a shit about the baseball anymore because the Cubs already won a World Series. I know what it feels like. I just miss things. So get me the hell out of Yorkville, Illinois, ASAP. As long as I'm not losing money, I will probably go.
So for me, it is pretty key, especially on the finance side, for them to know who I am and to have met me. I find that I do much better with that. And so I am planning on doing 2 trade shows at the state level, and then we are planning on being at CBC also. So I've got 3 on the agenda that we are planning on attending in person this year. And I hope that that's 4 or 5 in, next year. So for me, I think, as we look at it, it's part of the reason we love this industry is it's such a community. And, shaking hands and, fist bumping and doing that kind of stuff creates a big difference between, in my world, especially between me and the competition, right? Because I understand the industry, and I am, I'm hoping that I can wear flip-flops and shorts at the trade shows now, as opposed to the suit, because, that's hopefully the trade-off. But we're planning on being in person a lot, even this year and going into next.
Yeah, I'm right there with both of you. We have CBC planned. We're looking at probably MBAA in October, but I need to be on a plane. I have a lot of dollars sitting in United on credits that are just, every time I log in, I'm like, oh my God, Japan. I was actually supposed to go to China next month, but because of the vaccine schedule and my vaccination, we made the decision it wasn't worth trying to logistically make it happen. But I cannot wait. But as a company, I will say, my own personal, I cannot wait to be back out there. Company-wide, we're really looking at CBC as being really the only trade show in person this year. And we're not even sure what that's going to look like. So we've been very, very cautious about the amount of investment that we're putting into that event beyond the booth. Just because we just discussed this earlier this week, what does attendance look like? Normally White Labs have a big booth, 20 people, all of these things. And we just, because we're not really sure where the industry is going to be, it's very hard to make decisions right now on the level of investment in these type of things moving forward. So.
And Julie, how about you? You've spoken at possibly more virtual conferences than anyone. So looking ahead to your next year's plans, are you going to be able to travel to do all these in person, or what's your schedule going to look like based on your involvement this year?
I mean, for those people that know me, would I like to speak in person? Yeah, I like flail around and I gesture a lot. Like that's not super fun on Zoom. And I do like standing. I have a stand desk, so that helps a little bit. Like sometimes I teach, standing up because I feel like, I don't know, I just prefer it. And I'm one of those weird people that I like public speaking. It doesn't freak me out. I get like a endorphin. Joel, it gives me the happy stuff, yeah. So I do want to speak in person. I doubt I can juggle as many. So maybe I just go halvesies. I don't think virtual stuff is going to go away completely. It might be reduced when we can do stuff in person, but companies have figured out, and I say companies, trade shows, events, whatever. It's more economical sometimes to do virtual than it is to do in person. So, I think there might be like a split. I would like to do half and half, Also, I don't, unless I can bring the family with me, it kind of sucks to like be away from them for a while. But I do miss traveling. I do miss getting to drink the beer of my clients that are located in different states that I am not able to get shipping to me here, which kind of makes me sad. I'm tired of getting like contraband boxes. I'm not going to mention any names, but like, samples that are not authorized. So yeah, I would love to see all of you at CBC. It's right in me and Rachel and JoAnne's backyard. So I think CBC is just going to be miniaturized. Like if we had a shrink ray, like I think that's what it's going to look like. It'll still have the same feeling. It's just going to be super masky, and there's going to be less people there.
Masky, I haven't heard that used before.
It is, just for the protection of everybody that's involved, right? Regardless of where you stand on stuff, like just,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's what we have to look forward to. But I still think, another silver lining of this is that everybody is more used to virtual now. So like if I want to have a Zoom meeting with somebody in the future, it's not going to be weird. And they aren't like, what's Zoom? I don't know. If people were asking me that pre-COVID, and I'm like, it's a video conferencing platform. So everybody knows what it is now. That's a good thing.
Good insight there, Julie. And Rachel, how about you and Arryved? What's the plan looking forward? Because I know you've been super involved virtually as well.
Yeah. And, in my day-to-day job, I lean heavily on video call pre-pandemic as well to reach all of potential clients in the Southeast. So, that's always been part of our business and my job specific. We were actually just talking about this week as well as, CBC will definitely be there. It's in our backyard. Also, we are, I miss being social. I want to get on a plane. We're signed up for a few conferences scattered around, starting, kind of later half of summer, kind of just seeing what the world looks like, right? It's a whole new world out there, and we lean heavily on those events as a company, with social people, and want to, be out there choosing and raising pints with everybody too. So, as a company, we'll do it as safely as possible and kind of see what that looks like as we shift into a new world.
It'll definitely be interesting to see where the next year takes us with regard to virtual, in-person, and these hybrid experiences. But you know what? I enjoyed conversations like this. I really enjoyed the pandemic for the opportunity to connect with so many great people on the internet. And one thing that Julie mentioned, I think JoAnne, you touched on it as well. When you're virtual, you're accessible to all. And that's one thing we aim to be through Craft Beer Professionals. We aim to provide a resource to anyone, no matter where you are, no matter how much money you have. The learning should not stop. And I appreciate the 5 of you being here today and taking part in what we do and part of our community and part of our upcoming conference. And once again, we do have our conference coming up this coming Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, April 19th to 21st. Once again, 100% free. Huge thanks once again to Precision Fermentation, River Drive Cooperage, and White Labs. You guys make this possible. Thank you so much. But more importantly, I really enjoy the friendships that have come out of this. And I cannot wait to have a beer with the 5 of you in September. That's going to be great, Julie. Even if we're a little bit masky, I think it's going to be a good time. But I appreciate the 5 of you again, Joel, JoAnne, Julie, Rachel, and Jason. I'll see you both all within a couple days. So thank you again for taking part of this, and see you soon. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.